on the line, when I was calling board and stuff like that, it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter what your gender is. You need to be loud, you need to be heard, and you need to be in control, and the people that are working with you need to know as soon as, even right now, when I step on that line,
I'm not here to say hello.
Exactly. It's a different dynamic, right? So I go back there, I start calling board, I start working the grill, and then right away, it's just like people say, well, the food just starts to fly out. And it would with anybody going back there to do that. They just need an extra pair of hands for 4 minutes. But my line cooking experience kicks in, and I just, I'll call an order, and you better respond to me. And I just become that, and then I walk off the line, and even the cooks are just like, wow, or the servers are like, wow, that was awesome. It's almost like you're putting on a show, right? Especially the new ones who have no idea what your culinary background is, and you just walk back there like a boss, and it's awesome. I love it. It makes me happy.
Welcome to Flying for Flavor. I am your host, Stephanie Pichet. I usually like to start each show with a beverage recommendation, as you are well aware. And I recently came across a page online that listed women winemakers in Canada. So it's not always promoted at wineries, but there are so many women who are creating or helping to create stunning wines in this country that I figured this episode was a great opportunity to give them some kudos by posting a shopping list per se. So in these show notes, I have the websites listed of 12 wineries just in Ontario alone for you to explore and cheer these women on. There might be more than this 12, but I listed those that I found on this one particular website, and I added the link to the original website that has details of their biographies and other women who are working within the industry directly, or even indirectly, or as owners, just in case you want to read and learn more about them. So don't forget to check your LCBO app if you have one on your mobile device, or on your website to check which of these wines you can pick up this weekend. So unfortunately, we have an industry update to talk about that is right in line with this week's episode topic of Girls in the Industry. Legendary winemaker Norman Hardy has been accused of sexual misconduct by more than 50 people, according to Globe and Mail. He was a major player in the food and wine industry, and he's now being stripped of awards and accolades, and even his wines are no longer going to be stocked at the LCBO. I'm not going to go into the sordid details of the allegations here, but I'm going to include the Globe and Mail article in the show notes for those of you who don't normally follow these industry stories and want to read all about it. All I can say is that he is admitting to most of his bad behavior and has apologized publicly by way of statement. But I really think that he and his business are now done for good, which is too bad because his wines were great. And unfortunately, I think it's now always going to have that filter. You will see the label or see the wine listed someplace, and that's the first thing you're going to think of. And unfortunately, that's the doom of any brand. So we have featured his winery, full disclosure, and wines on an earlier bonus episode of Flying for Flavor, when a group of us went to visit the winery in Prince Edward County last fall. I was debating about whether do I pull the episode or make a public statement, but he's not featured in the actual episode, and his associate was the one who actually helped us with the tasting and interview, and she's no longer working there anyhow. The wines were terrific, and it was part of an overall episode, so I don't want to pull the entire episode of Prince Edward County because I don't think that the entire region of that area and all the other wineries in that episode deserve to be pulled just for that one. And I still have a few bottles of Norman Hardy in my cellar. I will still drink them, but I'm going to try to look at it as a positive thing that this will hopefully make positive changes going forward. Not sure when I'm going to drink them, but I probably will at some point. So this becomes a good segue to this episode. There have been many big-name chefs and restaurateurs, including Mario Batali, Ken Friedman, John Besh, that have been accused of sexual harassment and misconduct, as well as other hospitality professionals who have been taken down by women who are finally feeling free enough to speak out about their behavior. I've been following the stories closely, along with what's happening with their business empires, to see if there have been any repercussions or if those repercussions are equal and fitting to their cruel actions. But I read somewhere recently that many of them have, quote, stepped away from the business, end quote, but have not divested their assets, meaning they're still making money from the businesses and not just being front and center any longer. I am not sure if that's fair to those that they harassed who still work for those companies, or for the victims who still work in the industry and may have their own stories to tell, but now figure it's not going to matter since the accused seem to still get to hold the purse strings. Over the last month or so, I had the great opportunity, I and the Flavor crew here, to chat with a few ladies who had some of their own stories to share that could give us a better idea of what a female has to endure working in the hospitality industry. Bev Wills, who has appeared in this show a few times before. She is general manager here at Finn McCool's in Sudbury. She sat down with me for coffee to share her experiences with me. And another couple of ladies I know joined Cynthia Deek and I for some drinks about a month or so ago to share some stories and laughs and kind of throw around some ideas of how we can help women start gaining the courage going forward. And also, just as importantly, how we can encourage men to help them out too. So a quick note that, as you know, I've been playing around with my recording system here. So some of these portions were taped back when I was still learning to use the recording equipment. So hopefully you'll still be able to hear clearly and get the gist of it back and forth. So mostly this episode is going to be a lot of excerpts of conversations that we had. The two ladies that joined Cynthia Deek and I are using anonymous or assumed names. They're not their real names, only to protect them because of where they're currently working. And this way they can sort of feel a little bit more free to tell their stories actually as they are. So just keep that in mind, that they are not using their real names. If you have comments or stories to share, take a listen to what these ladies are talking about, and we would love to do a follow-up show on this perhaps in the fall. So please be in contact with us if you'd like to join in for the next discussion.
So Deek is our token man here today.
Yep.
And I do have
Who was nervous about coming
Who was
today.
very nervous about coming. He's like, oh my God, I'm coming into this like female rant mode. But I have to share that I did work with Deek in the food industry, and he was very much a gentleman and very he treated women with respect within our workspace and whatever, even when we were joking back and forth and whatever else. And I think it's important to say that we're going to share a lot of stories that are not so awesome between males and females working together. It could be the other way around as well too. I'm not sure that all women are perfect.
No, absolutely not.
But
that's one of the reasons
something to be
that I was insistent on making sure that you were here for it. It was only because I think there's a lot of times that I don't think men always know about what's happening. Again, if women aren't willing to speak up, if they're not sharing the stories or whatever, and then I know that when I share stories, even just Norm and I at home, of something I heard or read or someone shared with me or something, he always looks at me like, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because sometimes things sound so incredulous that you think, well, I couldn't have possibly, or it might be exaggerated, and are you sure? And but well, then I remind him that as much as some of these stories sound a little crazy, we know of stories, similar stories, just in other industries. Yeah. And for some reason, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this show today, is because I think that sometimes it's just taken for granted, like that, oh yeah, well that's just the restaurant industry. Or,
I hear that all the time.
right? Well, that's how it always is.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's not always the way it is.
If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, ladies.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how many times have we heard that?
Well, the same thing. I mean, I've had a couple of guys who've worked for me, and they've tried joking around like that. And sometimes you can, like, they have to figure out where that magic line is, or where they can cross it. And I've had to sort of remind them that, you know, like, all right, I brought you into this world, and I can take you out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have no problem throwing it back. And I said, if you're going to dish it out, you better be ready to take it.
Right.
Oh,
So don't come whining to me that so-and-so is, you know, is being rough with you. And I think that's one of those things when you were talking about how some people tend to like to gravitate towards you're emotional, irrational. It's just an automatic.
What time of the month is it?
That is like the worst
Right.
thing
Right?
a man can say to a woman.
Right, so a man can be hungover, whatever else, that kind of thing, regardless of the situation. Is having a bad day, it happens, right? A woman does it, all of a sudden she's just being emotional.
Right.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it could be warranted. Men and women express themselves differently, so just because it's different doesn't mean that it's not valid. Oh my goodness, I was in stereo.
That was good. You owe me a drink. Oh wait, never mind.
It's like, wait a minute. I guess what I wanted to do is kind of lift the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
Because just like I've done other behind the scenes industry episodes before, I want other people who go out to eat, go on an airplane, go and stay in a hotel, might be not aware of the things and scenarios and stuff that are happening in the hospitality industry like they are what you see in Hollywood and on the news and everything else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some very mild examples and then there's some not so mild examples. And because you've worked in a kitchen for so many years.
Yeah.
But you're also, I think we're both similar that way that I think it's because we didn't come up in a traditional way where we were kind of told to follow that patriarchal, hierarchical scenario, right? Where everyone's talking down to each other, whatever. So I think we have different attitudes.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe you could share a little bit more about what it was like back in the day compared to what it's like now.
Well, so as you know, I started when I was 14. It was a dishwasher, and so for a full year, I did dishes and I watched and I learned. And then when I moved up to the line, it was all women. We had no men working in this one restaurant.
I know, and that's completely unusual.
Exactly right. So only the bosses, is what we called them. The bosses were men, and it was all women. And in fact, they hired a guy once, and we were all like, "This guy doesn't know what he's doing." It seems to be the other way around now. But anyway, but I was quite young and incredibly naive, believe it or not. And I had no idea.
We all are though at that age.
Well,
we think we know.
Well, that's it, right? So some of them seem to be more worldly than little me, but after a few years, like when I was 18 and 19, still working in the same restaurant, I was like, wait a second, you tried something on me. And I didn't know, right? At the time, I was just like, don't do that again. Because I was like, I don't think this is right, but I don't know what you're trying to do.
And I don't like it.
And there's something in you, most of us anyway, where we just go, wait a minute, like, that's not cool. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, that's not cool. But he definitely tried. But I was able to just rebuff that. And I also figured out in hindsight that our working relationship was never the same again, but I could never figure out why until I was 19. I was like, oh, I was one of the few that actually...
Oh, you said no.
Yeah. So suddenly I was a troublemaker. Suddenly I was opinionated and stuff like that. And I just wasn't interested in that. All kinds of crazy stuff went on. And that was in the early 80s. Not to age myself too much, but that was the early 80s, and that was my first foray into the restaurant business. And I was able to hold my own, as they say. And but when I started working at a different restaurant, where it was all men online and all women in the prep area, which seemed at the time normal, when I got put up online because I was able to hustle and sense that.
You had skills.
I had skills, mad skills, and but I did find that I gave as good as I got. So as soon as somebody got a little aggressive with me, never physically though. And after that one incident, never physically did anybody. I've had chefs come on to me. I've had, but I don't know if that's a power thing within any industry. So any position of authority where they come on to you, even if it's just for grinners or just to see if they can do it or to see if you're willing to do it, I just no. And I just would be no right away, and I never feared for my job.
See, in the wedding industry, most of the men are gay.
Half of the waiters Hi, Monroe. Can we not hire any straight?
A lot of the male flight attendants are also gay. So that's why it's like when you're on layovers.
It's the pilot or nobody.
So now we're finding it here interesting. So there seems to be a trend. So the men who are working in the traditional female roles in the hospitality industry, most of the men that are getting hired and doing well are gay. But why is there still so much male to female harassment and sexual predation and everything else going on? Is it because the men who are in power are making the hires in that way, so they have easy pickings, so that any guys that they hire, they have no competition?
Right.
How much of the management is straight versus gay?
So
though,
you
right?
can't have that many if it's mostly females and gay men that are in those subservient. I'm doing air quotes. Subservient, the lower roles within the hospitality industry. Then that would make sense to me. Sorry, brain's going on overdrive. I want to make sure that we're still taping. So that the men who are making the hiring decisions or who are in the management team will promote and whatever. It seems to be straight men are either already in management positions or higher.
Yeah.
Or they're not the ones that are getting hired in the lower positions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on purpose or is it just
I don't know that the men are applying for those lower positions. Again, that was my struggle when I was recruiting, is that I couldn't find male servers and male, even male prep cooks were hard to find. We were seeing more and more women.
Why not?
I don't know. You tell me. If I could have solved that 6 years ago when I was running that company, that would have been great.
There's a lot of that going on right now with even in the political scene where they just say your silence is helping the oppressors, right? And I think, but I didn't know any better. I certainly didn't talk to anybody about it either. So again, my mom, for example, who's been in obviously my life, but like one of my biggest fans, she had told me afterwards, she said, had I known, there's no way you would have continued working there. And I wonder how different maybe my entire life would have been had I said to Mom, hey, you know what? This man tried to do this to me. You know, she would have, the cops would have been called. I mean, I was 15.
Mama Bear would have been woke.
Absolutely. You know, so I think, but because he didn't talk about it, like back, I don't know if he's do young girls still not talk about it? Maybe, I don't know. I'll tell you right now, like now, if I see it, I don't put up with it.
No, because you're in the protected mode.
Yes. So I see it, and unfortunately, I've had to let people go because of verbal comments. You have you do the 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out thing, and they still keep on it. And we're like, that's not cool. You can't talk to people that way. Because you know when it's joking around and you know when it's serious. And if one person's not getting that this other person's joking around, it doesn't matter. You have to rein it back.
So, I guess I wanted this to be more of a sharing stories, and I don't like sharing stories just to vent. I don't want this to be a negative thing, but I want it to be so we share enough stories that, first of all, at the end of this, that maybe people can be a little bit more aware when they're going out to restaurants, they're in hotels or something else, to keep an eye out for things. We were sharing stories earlier, I don't know if we were taping at the time, but about a server telling me a story about how she was being verbally abused by customers in a restaurant, and none of the other customers, let alone server staff, even stood up for her. And I think those are the kind of things that the reason that these people get away with it is because no one is standing up for them at the time.
I think too, and sorry to interject stuff as I always do.
Well, you know me, I'll keep going on, so please interject.
I wonder too if some of it has to do with the fact that the hospitality industry tends to be a youthful industry as well. Like when I look back, so my years as a server and on that side of things, I was quite young. I was between 15 and 24, I guess, was when I was kind of my prime serving years. And when I think about the things that I was told and the way I was treated back then, I'd love to see someone say those things to me now as a woman of a certain age. Because
it's my turn to giggle.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm still younger than Steph, so it's all right.
I have no problem with my age.
But that is that kind of thing. Like I was 15 years old working in a fast food industry, and I was being shown how to use the fry thing. That you put the box on the fry. I don't know what it would be, like scooper, and then you shake it like it's a hand job.
Yeah. Basket?
Yeah, it wasn't a basket. It was like
You see like a hand job?
like a hand job. He said you shake it like you're giving a hand job.
Oh, is that what they told you?
That is what he told me. I was 15 years old, and this was 20 some years ago. I didn't know what a hand job was. So I was like, okay, I'll just do it. Whatever you say.
The way you're describing it, I don't think you still do.
Oh, it burns. Sorry, Mark.
The bird.
That's fine, Deke.
I made my contribution.
That's fine, Deke.
I'm kidding.
But that kind of thing would never fly now. I mean, it's, you know.
My in school, we were whisking eggs to make Caesar dressing. So there's like, none of the women are going to get their Caesar dressing correct. Only the men will.
Yeah.
And they all stood and they all looked at it, and I'm like if they can do it, then that means they have way too much time on their hands.
Right?
They can perfect their Caesar. But it was just, I stood there, I'm like,
Then as a woman, you almost don't want to get it because you're going to assume something else.
and then I was like, oh, she's good. But it was like the whole class was all girls. I think we only had 5 guys, and the rest were all
Yeah.
girls. And it was just like, okay, don't just assume that.
But this, why is that comment even being made? Like, why is that a thing, and why are
it's
we?
still being made nowadays. It was made last week when something was going on at work too. It's just like, really?
Yeah, you think by now that things may change a little bit.
That was 8 years ago, because that's when I was in culinary school. That was like
Yeah,
8 years
and mine was, like I said, got to be almost 20. Well, my son is the same age, so 27 years ago is when I had that experience, and it hasn't changed. That's the scary part, and we're supposed to be more enlightened now. We're supposed to be more aware of how we're speaking to each other, and it doesn't seem to be there. But I do wonder if a lot of it has to do, like you say, culinary school. So women tend to be younger there. A lot of our servers, it tends to be one of their first jobs or second jobs while they're going through school.
Working, through school.
So they don't have that kind of confidence around saying, you can't speak to me that way, because we think about our job, we worry that we're going to be judged and all those kinds of things. Whereas, I do feel that as we get older, we get more experience under our belts. There's a certain point where it's like, yeah, no, that isn't okay. Deke, you can't say those mean things to me. I don't appreciate it.
On that note, I started serving when I was 17, and I worked as a server bartender up until I started my master's when I was 22. And even just at that point, I remember I was working behind the bar, and I had a customer wave money at me, and like he's like, "Oh, get over here! Like, you owe me this." And he flat out said to me, "If you don't come serve me right now, I won't tip you." And I'm like, I looked at him and I gave him a snarky remark. I mean, it had been enough for me, because I was like, enough is enough. I've been doing this since I was 17, and I basically was like, you know what, I'm quitting this job in like a couple months, so you can keep your little tip. And
I don't need you.
I don't need you, essentially,
Right,
yeah. And then, a couple of years later, I went back into the service industry.
That's one of those
fair.
things. Men would never speak to another guy like that behind a bar.
I think you're right.
Even
you're
if
right.
there's an age thing. So even if it's an older man and a young guy behind there, it may happen on occasion, but it's rare.
No, I think you're right.
And
Yeah,
I think it's
I agree
because
with that.
they know, or they assume that they get away with it and it's okay. And again, we were talking about earlier about how a lot of times when men are behaving in this way, regardless of the extreme situations when things get to beyond inappropriate and cross that line, a lot of times it's because they're showing off for another guy or other people. So that's where you get the group of guys who go out together. It's the guys hanging around in the kitchen together, right? Couple of bus boys in the corner giggling about something. It's always seems to be how, and it's almost like men are trying to show off to somebody else. and those are the kind of situations where it finds
But
difficult.
listen, I've served tables with older ladies that, you know.
you know what, I will agree.
I've gotten
Also
it
the
before
honesty.
too. I've gotten it before too.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
less frequently, I'm sure.
Less free, of course. Of course,
No,
less
but it's one
frequently.
thing for them to comment and stuff to you. It's another thing for them to speak down to you in that way.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
a
the
different
difference
thing.
is
Yeah.
when it comes
That's a different
when
thing.
it comes to the general sexual harassment,
Yeah,
it
no,
comes
no.
on both sides.
Yeah.
I've
And
seen ladies that's-
middle-aged
Yes.
women are the worst.
Oh yeah.
Cougars are the worst for being inappropriate with young, good-looking young men. I've seen it, and it grosses me out. I mean, I'm all the one. I'll go to a strip club with my husband, or we've gone with the girls to a male strip, see male strippers. I would rather go see the girls 100 times more because the men are way more respectful than the women are. Women are animals. It is so inappropriate.
I've
It's
heard
gross.
stories.
But I can't. Well, guess what I don't understand then is if men are respectful, the ones who are going
Right?
to these adult entertainment places are a little bit more respectful. Why are they like that outside of there as well, or is it just there's more reinforcement and rules in there about what you can and can't do?
I think
The
there's
rules
more
are there,
rules.
and it's not tolerated, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so prevalent in that space, it's not tolerated. And if they are inappropriate, they're shown the door, whereas women are not. Like we see it here in our community when we've got the poor firefighters come with their calendars. Again, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Sorry, ladies, I love you all, but you're gross. Like it really is because I'm like, do you not? It's like a certain amount of self-respect for myself, a certain amount of respect for these people who, quite frankly, aren't even models and aren't putting themselves in that way, but they're friggin' saving people's lives every day, and it is just gross. Now, the guys act like they enjoy it, so maybe it's a bit of an ego thing, but at the end of the day, there's a line that's crossed. But when it comes to, I feel with the waving of the $5 bill and the talking down, it's an entitlement thing. I think they don't even know. Steph,
Some
I'm
guys,
telling you,
maybe.
I don't think they know. I think that they are like, this is just how I get what I want. And it comes to a conversation, I don't think we were recording when I shared it, where we were in a group of 4 when I was on vacation, my husband and 2 men, be about 10 years older than us, mid-50s, late 50s. And they were all asking each other about their work. And the only question I got was about my kids. And I was like dropping hints to share what I do because I'm really proud of my job. Besides my wedding planning company, I work for a great national IT company. And I was super excited. Like, I get to actually talk with the big boys. I had a cool job to talk about. It's not wedding planning, which is screams girly, right?
Right.
And not one. And when I spoke to my husband about it after, and he just couldn't understand why I was so upset by it. He's like, well, I don't see why it's such a big deal. And he recognized that it was unequal and that it was ridiculous, but he didn't understand why I was so upset by it. And that was that's like an example of a guy who was really, quite frankly, pretty enlightened and has always been super supportive and doesn't see gender differences. But his point is he doesn't see the gender differences, right? Whereas you've got your men who don't care. The ones that it's like we call it a second generation gender bias, where they don't even realize they're doing it because it's just so ingrained in them. And so I agree that there's definitely some posturing that happens for the other guys, but I think there's a lot of it that the guys don't even realize what they're doing. And that's where we talk about, do they know, do they recognize it? And this is maybe a way to share, this is what you're actually doing, guys.
Yeah, well, I think it's in the culture. You know, it's in the interactions in between colleagues, in between like even server, bartender, and customer. You know, it's like, I'm giving you money. It's like I almost felt like I felt like I was for sale. You know, I was like, okay, so you'll give me money if I go up to you, I smile, I flirt a little bit, give you a nice drink, you know, maybe we'll chat for a little while and you'll give me a tip, right? You know, and that's why I stopped serving for a good while, because I couldn't stand it anymore. I was like, you know, especially whenever I would go working, I dressed like I'm going out to the bar. Yeah. You know?
And you'd have to, like, I was a shooter girl.
Oh, I was gonna get into that. So let's talk about attire for a minute.
Well,
I definitely was going to say about
please
that.
go ahead.
Okay, so when I pulled out my old bartending uniform, I went through a lot of my old clothes. I pulled out this skirt, and my jaw fell to the floor. I was like, how did I wear this?
How did you bend over if you dropped something?
I was
You
almost
don't
ashamed.
drop anything.
I was almost ashamed that, like, you know, when you like look back to those old pictures of you like back in 7th grade, you're like, oh my god, how did I wear that? I had one of those moments of like me like bartending, wearing this like tiny little Dickies skirt, you know, that like barely covered. It was like a little like
A headband?
it was like a headband around my bottom half. And like, how did you wear this? It's like almost embarrassing that I wore.
I love Finn McCool's. We're big fans of Finn McCool's here, but those kilts that those girls are wearing, it's like, I mean, Lord knows if I'd have worn them that short to Catholic school, the nuns would have been praying for me. Like, they're short. Like, and I look at them and I'm really like, how do they do it? At least when I was a shooter girl, it was a sports bar, was like the big bar in Sudbury at the time. And so we wore jeans, thank God, and just low neck V-necks. But I remember, and it's a little bit about, you know, what confidence we have in our 20s versus later, saying I was so frustrated that I was a shooter girl because I was like, why did they put me with all these hot girls as a shooter girl? And it was like soul crushing on my self-confidence. I was like, why am I a shooter girl? All these hot girls are going to make all this money and I'm making nothing. Like, you know, 20 years later, although maybe I was cute too. So looking back, okay, so maybe I was cute. But then I was offended. Well, why did I have to be on the floor as a shooter girl? Because I was cute. Why couldn't I make money at the bar? Because I was cute. And that was kind of the bigger thing that I kind of took from it. It's like, regardless of whether I was cute or not, why did I have to trade on my looks at the time when I could have been a very competent bartender and made the same amount of money? And it's that idea of, again, you sure as hell didn't see any guys selling shooters on the floor.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the question. It's not that is it expected that, or you just take it for granted that these types of jobs, it's a part of a requirement to dress a certain way, behave a certain way, act a certain way, be a little flirtatious. Do you think the tips are the problem?
Probably.
100%.
If you're working for the tips.
You're working for the tips. I agree.
Okay. Here's my playing devil's advocate here for a second. My son admitted to me a while back he was having difficulty finding server jobs, especially when he was in school in Ottawa for a while. And he said a lot of it, he would show up for, they'd have like job fair days. And it doesn't matter how qualified he was, a lot of them actually came out and said that, yeah, we're hiring the girls. They would joke around about it. A bunch of guys would do these job fairs. And he would be one of maybe 3 guys in the entire group that would show up to apply for these jobs. And regardless of how much experience he had, girls were nervous sitting beside him, saying that they've never worked in a restaurant before, and they would get hired and not him.
That is fascinating to me because when I ran the catering company, I was dying for guys. Like, I had so many young girls working for me, and that's why Portique got pulled down when I needed, because I needed a few guys who could do something that some of my girls couldn't do.
But exactly, that's the same thing. I always made sure I had guys too.
Closest thing at the door, I would take resumes and I would bring them back to the guys like, was she cute at least?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a woman for one. I don't swing in that direction. So for me to say, oh, yeah, she's hot, and I'm like, I don't know. It means nothing for me. But I'm there, I'm like, why does it care if she's hot? I mean, she's got the qualifications. Hire her. But it's like, no, it's like they just...
No, because they would rather, and a lot of times I was hearing from people who are working in restaurants that most girls, if they're pretty, they do not even need to have any experience whatsoever. They will still hire them as is.
Here's the reality, guys. We're in a society that sex sells. And especially when it comes to sales, even, pardon me, I worked in a retail environment for a period of time, and it was sporting goods, and it was lovely, and we were very, like, I was a manager without, I didn't have to sleep with the boss to be a manager. I just was a manager on my own criteria. But we did comment that we had a lot of really great guys in the mix, and we really we thought, you know what, we should also throw in some women in there as well too, because quite frankly, men respond well to a good looking girl selling them something. And if they're competent, even better. And that's just a reality of, again, society, whether it's right or wrong.
Okay, but do you need to be wearing the
No, I don't think you do.
Waist?
No, I don't think you do.
Right?
I don't think you do.
Wearing a bra as a top.
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all. But I've always been a big proponent that less is more. I think it's way sexier to have a hint of something than to just lay it all out on the table.
It is. But I think but unfortunately, the people who are making the decisions in these restaurants are usually the ones who are dictating attire and everything else.
And I'm sorry, those skirts need to be shorter. Your servers need to be able to bend over and pick up something if it falls. And the reality is that it isn't, and it's not okay.
No.
Because we're not asking the guys to wear something that short when they bend over.
No.
So true.
Even the kilts at Finn McCool's are longer for the boys.
They are.
People actually go to the...
Yeah. But my other thought is, do you think that it is the short skirts, the short kilts are required? We will have to ask them. Required, or it's the girls that are getting them shortened and wearing them up
It's a good
because
question.
it's...
Let's look at peddlers. Peddlers is the same thing too. Like,
Yeah.
skirts are pretty short.
Well, Nikki, when you said
I
you had
rolled
that
up my
short
kilt
bartending
one.
skirt,
I rolled
were
up
you
my skirt
required to,
when I
or
had
did
no
you
uniform
choose
in
to?
school.
It was required. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't wear pants, you know, but I mean, they provided you with these really baggy, uncomfortable, like, how can you wear
They're
work in
trying to
those
make
pants?
you
Right.
wear this skirt over the ugly.
Well,
unflattering
like basically the options are, yeah. I mean, sometimes I wore pants. I had the skirt in the pants, pretty much. But yeah, like I mean, basically.
Did you make more money when you wore the skirt?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that there's, as much as you work with more women, are you still seeing a difference in roles? As in, how many women in management or in, in higher up positions compared to
my experience has been a lot of women
Yeah?
in management, and I like to think it's because they're qualified.
Yes.
But they tend to be the managers that I've worked with tend to be they're moms who have older children, or they're younger, freshly married, no children. Having young children in this business, because whether it's sexist or not, a lot of those early years fall on the mom, and it's very difficult for them. So, as soon as one of your servers or cooks or managers gets pregnant, you're like, oh, we just lost them for 5 years, because they're in and out of the business, and you get it.
Yes.
I've worked with a lot of women. I had a couple of shifts at a restaurant down the road where it was all women on the line, and it was wonderful. Just to have a cleaner.
Never have a cleaner.
I know, again, that's sexist, but it's so true.
It's one of the perks. Well, and I think that we were talking about roles a little bit when I met with the other ladies earlier. Because I know that when I had the catering business, I had a lot of guys. I didn't have as many guys that would come to offer to serve, unless they were very young, meaning like high school guys, right, that needed the extra money kind of thing. Most of the guys I know, they would fight over the bartending shifts because those were cool, right? Or they didn't mind like supervising or things like that, but it wouldn't necessarily be servers. And Cynthia commented the same thing back when she was in management, that every time she was hiring, like she wanted more guys to apply because it was great having a couple of guys around that could be a server, be bartender, work in the back, like just can be all over. So I didn't know if guys feel like there is still a stereotype for them.
A huge misconception that I found was that a lot of people kind of saw like a flight attendant as being someone that, you're just a server in the sky.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like the drills that I had to do in training were insane.
You're responsible for the safety of hundreds
exactly.
of people.
It's like if the plane is going down and we need to evacuate 200 people out of like this tube flying in the sky, like who do you think is going to be responsible for that?
Yeah.
Like the flight attendants are. The pilots are too busy up front to do anything.
Trying to not crash the damn plane.
Exactly. So you're relying on your flight attendants, your servers in the sky to save your life. So that's what I really struggle with, because it was like when I was treated a certain way, some people definitely respect it, but a lot of it, yes, this was generally men who treated you a little bit more with a little bit more disrespect, where it was like, you're here to serve me, I want this, you do this, had more demands, and that kind of didn't really treat you with the respect that I felt that I deserved, especially after the rigorous training that I got.
In the airline industry, because we were talking about this earlier, I'm assuming that you must have some kind of protocols, human resource steps that you need to take, where if somebody has a complaint, whether it's from a passenger, coworker, or whatever else, you have a method of recourse essentially that you can follow with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing is too, on the plane itself, the pilot, they're considered like officers of peace. So if ever there is an issue, like we did, as soon as we get to the ground, there's an arrest that's made at the door. We don't even open the door until the police get there. So I definitely felt that regardless of what might happen, I knew that it's safety first, and that's what they always pushed for. It's like, if you don't feel safe, someone just like threatening you or being verbally abusive towards you, like you call up friend, you say, hey, I'm having an issue with this. passenger, and the pilots had your back generally. If you had good pilots, I mean, sometimes you might not have had good pilots and they wouldn't have had your back, but.
Because I think I just hear recent stories, again, news junkie, not even hiding it anymore. But I'm sure there was a couple of instances where passenger or flight attendants were complaining about how either one passenger was harassing another passenger, somebody was being groped, flight attendants or whatever, and depending on who the passenger was and whether they were a frequent flyer or not or whatever, a lot of things were kind of swept under the rug and or ignored, or something wasn't taken to that through that normal process.
Well, and Nikki said it point blank. It depended on the pilots.
So the pilots make all the final decisions in that situation?
Not final. Like, I mean, it's more like head office. Like, you know, on the flight itself, the pilots have the call. But, you know, if someone files a complaint or anything like that, it'll go through the process of, you know, the company.
Okay, so even if it's like one passenger complaining about another passenger, it still has to go through the same process.
For that, on the flight, it's basically the flight attendants and the pilot that make the call, right? Because you can't do anything. You're flying 40,000 feet in the air.
You have to wait till you land.
You have to wait till you land. So it's basically you have to do the best that you can, right? So if it means switching seats, if it means, okay, well, we're going to take this guy's regular seats up in the, like, you know, different classes or something, you might put someone there, you know, and just try to.
I hope you're not moving someone into first class when they were behaving badly back.
No, you definitely want to
The victim gets to go
actually, like, you know, not being.
Remind me to complain about being harassed my next very long flight. No, just kidding.
Don't
if
do
you
that.
have good
Travel tips.
Yeah.
The umbrella that this episode is under, I want it to be a problem solution based. And we keep coming back to the same thing, is about teaching girls to have more confidence. And I know I have to do that for myself. So I will get frustrated when I see a guy on Instagram posting something that I always look at him and I go, wow, ballsy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? And I'm just, or I'm thinking, wow, have you got confidence, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I found myself hesitating a lot, especially when I first started. And I know it was not that the industry was putting any pressure on me. It's not that these guys were mean to me or anything else. Yeah. It was me feeling like everyone's watching me and then I have to prove something. So I couldn't just be the girl making cupcakes and selling sandwiches. I had to be the best goddamn caterer in the city, right? Like I had to put that pressure on myself because I felt like I had to prove something to get their respect. And I'm thinking that, is it because the girls were not encouraging the girls that, like, why are you letting them?
Exactly.
Why are you letting them step in front of you?
Yeah.
You've been here longer. Step up and say something.
Exactly.
I think it was very important for me to make sure that Deke was here for this episode. Not because I wanted him to feel like we were going to do a man bashing.
No.
That's not what it was.
Yeah.
No, but I wanted to make sure, and that's why I spoke and talked about my son's difficulty with hiring stuff, about how girls got hired faster than he did. So I understand that there's issues on both sides for certain things, but when it comes to usually the sexual harassment, it's usually girls that get the most of it.
Yeah.
And I think I want to take this opportunity to share stories. Don't have to be personal. I mean, assuming that you guys have friends who are in certain situations, but just to show what types of things are still happening today. Not something that happened 20 years ago. What kind of things are happening now that customers may not be aware of, regardless of what industry it is, that a lot of times the guys who are working in these things may not be aware of, especially if they are the ones, if they aren't the harassers or being a part of it, right? They might be just going to work and minding their own business and leaving. They may not even know sometimes of these things that are happening.
Yeah.
So I'd like to share those stories. And then I want to go back again. Cynthia, yes, you can go first. She's putting up her hand. It's like she's in school. But then I want to go back again because I don't want to leave this episode with just, here's a list of all the things that went wrong.
Right.
I want to do a quick brainstorming thing of how can we make things better.
I love it.
Sure.
Okay? All right. Stories? You want to start?
Okay, I'm gonna
Cynthia's going to start. She put her
I'm gonna
hand
start.
up.
Only because mine's like very wedding specific, and I think that it's safe to say a lot of men attend weddings as well too.
Safe to say.
Even though our industry is pretty female dominated, but even we've got a lot of really fantastic male vendors, especially in our community. We've got a lot of husband and wife teams who are fantastic, and the guys are really on the ball. But one thing that we definitely see is wedding planners, and it was actually introduced in a Facebook group that I hadn't really thought about it until I went, oh my god, yeah, this happens all the time. Is groomsmen and guests. There's usually that one drunk uncle. I joke all the time. Everyone's got that one drunk uncle.
Yeah.
Mercilessly hitting on wedding vendors is a real thing. And it's not even like it's serious. Like, I mean, realistically, at the age I am now, a lot of my wedding parties, I could be their mom. Like, I'm getting to that stage where I kind of skirt between mom and my clients. And I had one particular wedding party where they were relentless, and one was like he was going to show me what he had and his package and whatever else.
Wow.
And I remember saying to him, "Oh, sweetie, I've had to deal with much bigger, much more experienced men than you, sunshine." Like it was just like so I'm comfortable handling it now. And then I went, why am I comfortable handling this? I shouldn't be comfortable with this, but it is the norm. Like when I'm used to these guys posturing and like why you're not hitting on the wedding planner because you want to sleep with her. I'm sorry, at least not this wedding planner. I'm not being self-deprecating. The reality is that I'm like I identify as their moms a lot of times, but it's just this thing that they seem to think that because they've had a few drinks and they're dressed nice that all the women around them should fall at their feet. And it's definitely not a. And it's prevalent, and it's not just, photographers get it as well. Like the wedding vendors, the servers definitely get it. I've seen female DJs. I mean, it's brutal. So definitely something that I would love to see guys be willing to step up when they see something that's happening. Or if it's one of your jackass friends doing it and saying, hey, dude, like, it's not cool. It's...
Trust me, you'll impress the girls much more if you're the one standing up for them.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, so that's actually that's a good point.
You got to be the hero.
It is, yeah.
But and that's why I gave Deke some credit at the top when he first walked in the door. I don't know where it's going to fall in our show, but because he is the kind of the man when he's in an environment who is gentlemanly, and that's why we respect him, and that's quite frankly, I'm sure one of the reasons he's sitting here. Right? We wouldn't have brought a jackass male chauvinist to come sit with us because we'd have just eaten him alive. It would not have been pretty.
That I'd pay money to see.
Sitting with these ladies a few weeks, he's like, yeah, please bring
Sounds like a show.
But that's just an example of where we definitely see it in my industry. So we're quasi hospitality, but we definitely see a lot of folks hitting on the vendors in inappropriate ways. And
that's also the atmosphere, right? At a wedding, when people, so you think wedding, you're like, oh, we're going to party, we're going to pick up, especially for guys. It's like that conception of like, if you're
but
going
the staff
there,
are not there to get picked up. The staff are there and working, right? And Lord, God forbid, I've got a couple of young ladies who work for me, and a couple of us old goats. Like, we're not that old, but like, God forbid if we ever catch anyone hitting on one of our team members, we will we will not tolerate it. Full stop. But I tolerate it for myself, because I can't throw a groomsman out, right? So it's like I put them in their place pretty quickly and in a humorous, jokingly way. But it's definitely an area where folks can step up, whether it's a guy or a girl stepping up when you see someone having that kind of behavior, for sure.
Yeah, maybe the issue is just like if there's no consequence to the actions, there's nothing that changes, right? I mean, when I was bartending once, I had a guy who felt pretty entitled, who actually came behind the bar and started grabbing it at the booze. Yeah. So I mean, that's like, it's an open and closed case. I mean, I called over the bouncer, he came and grabbed him, and out the door he went, right? But still, like,
Oh, the number of times serving when your butt is grabbed or your boob is grabbed, or for me, they thought it was super funny if this is now an old story, but when they'd hit my tray when I was serving shooters, and then I'd have to pay for those shooters because we were all on commission, and those kinds of things. It's just, calling your friends out on douchey behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Is huge.
Yeah, I think it depends on the environment. If there's drinking involved, I think it's more likely to happen, which is probably, again, why weddings, if you're drinking, you're partying. If you're bartending and it's more of like a club or a pub, people are out drinking, whatever, that's where I've had stuff happen, is in that kind of environment. Because it's happened to me more than once when someone tried to get behind the bar. And actually once I got, like, someone swung at me They didn't know they had their back to me, and I like they were going behind the bar, and I just kind of took their shoulder, and I was like, no, like, and I kind of pulled them back, and then like I'm not like a huge like tough person, and this person was pretty big, and I pulled it back, and they swung their arm back at me, and I ducked, and like it went over my head, and then the bouncer came over, off he went, but still, it's like I think that's where stuff happens more is when there's drinking involved.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it has to do with a corporate structure in restaurants, especially when it's a family-run thing or it's an independent. A lot of independents are family-run.
Yeah.
So there's a different system as opposed to there's not necessarily an HR department.
That's right.
There's not necessarily standard policies and procedures. They're not under the same kind of scrutiny and corporate watchdog scenarios that a larger business might be. So because you worked in both, do you notice a difference at all, either then or now? Do you think there's a benefit, as much as people like turn their nose up at the whole idea of franchises? I'm not saying that the corporate thing and yes, there's a copycat and there's people like, oh, you need to support smaller businesses. But some of what the corporate side does with the policies, procedures, the HR stuff or whatever else to protect the company on a whole and to protect their employees, I think a lot of those can be adopted for smaller businesses.
Definitely.
They just need to be shown how.
Well, they can be, because I'm actually seeing it happen with somebody who worked for us who ventured out.
Yep.
And he's a regular. Now he's a regular where he used to work, which is wonderful, and we're happy to see him. But almost every visit, he's like, I started doing this.
Because he missed
the structure. He missed the... Franchises are a wonderful thing. There's a certain amount of security in them. So that particular employer, I mean, I don't want to name names,
No.
But he's now starting to make change in this mom and pop place because he knows it works. Ultimately, it works, and it's just easier when everybody has the, like you said, policy. You know, I have
something to fall back. It's
we have a
security.
health and safety policy. And
Yep.
we have a workplace violence and harassment policy, and it's super simple, and it's 3 pages. And when I do an orientation, I go through the whole thing, and then when it sort of rears its ugly head every once in a while, I pull that health and safety policy out and I highlight maybe the infraction and just say, remember I talked to you about this? So this is what I feel happened, and then way over here I highlight my responsibilities. And my responsibilities are that I have to deal with this.
Yes.
And then a lot of times they're just like, wow. Where in a mom and pop, they'll just quit, or the employer might just fire you because they think you're trouble. I don't know. It's
Or
been a
people
long
just
time.
don't say anything.
They don't say anything, and it just goes on because there's that fear. Because you might be making $1 more an hour at a mom and pop place, maybe, or you feel that you're getting your hours, or the mom and pop closes at 8, and man, that's cool to be home at 8:30 in the evening. Who knows? It's been a long time since I worked there. I do know that structure works in our business. And
So it might be something that would give girls who are, especially younger ones, who haven't developed the confidence yet. If they're working in a place that has a little bit of structure, so even if you're a business owner or manager of a non-franchised place, or it does not have those things, look into, I mean, I said I brought them in for catering things, and I've told people before, contact your local chamber of commerce, because that's what I did for the accessibility,
right?
The AODA when it was coming through, I knew that because I didn't have a specific facility, but I do know that there was going to be certain things that I would have to be responsible for as a business owner.
Right.
So I went to go and went through and sat through the seminars to learn more about it. but all I did was ask, saying like, oh my God, to have these big policy things, like I'm not a big corporation, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I just asked my local chamber, do you have like a template or do you have yours that I can change up? I said, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd love to share that stuff.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of asking around, saying that, you know I'm not like some big franchise, but if I had some kind of standard policies, it doesn't just help the employees feel more secure about whether they can say something or not. I think it also helps management or the owners, as you said, you have your responsibilities listed in there, and that gives you that comfort or cushion that this is not me being the bad guy.
Exactly. It's so true, because like in every job, like there's times when you have like it's awful to have to write up one of your best employees for whatever reason. It's tough, and you just have to say like, I gotta do it because I can't have two sets of rules. So when one of them is out of line, you have to bring them back in, and it's tough.
Are there any policies lately about, used to call it in-office dating, so it's not say an office thing.
Oh God.
So essentially, I hate to say it, but manager and employee together,
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
that can be considered as harassment because one person has power over the other.
Yeah.
Right? In their job. So if that happened in another environment, law office or anything else, it would be absolutely no. But in a restaurant, it seems to be okay. And I've noticed, and it's not, and it's one thing when it's coworkers, again, it has to do with who's in charge of who, right? Mm-hmm. So do you find that, in your experience, ladies, that you find that when you see those kind of relationships, is it usually just a casual thing because the managers are serial daters of the employees? I've heard stories from people that have worked for me over the years where there's certain restaurants where they will say, oh yeah, that's where so-and-so works or whatever. Like I had to dress differently when I worked there. This guy, he never has a girlfriend. He's just with a new girl that works there on a ongoing basis.
Well, I actually have a friend of mine. She met her husband, was her boss, like the manager of the restaurant. Mm-hmm. So I mean that lasted.
We have a couple of those.
Yeah.
I think it's a difference between a potential romantic relationship that, humanly happens. I mean, as the wedding planner, romance is wonderful and whatever. Mm-hmm. But that idea of, quite frankly, people christening the restaurant in different places and dude, I can't even. We had cameras.
I don't think
our staff knew they had cameras, but it didn't matter. And then you'd have your serial daters where, the certain bartender had made their way through the serving team or, certain members of the kitchen. Deke's laughing. It wasn't Deke. It wasn't Deke that I knew of. We had a chef in there before I started who, was working his way through the team as well, too. And I mean, in a lot of cases, it doesn't matter whether they're married or not, whether they're in a relationship or not or whatever. It just seems to be something that is super prevalent, and it's gross. I'll be very honest with you as a feminist and a woman who wants to see these folks having some pride in themselves. But this is, like you said, Jen, at some point, that if you're sleeping with the boss, you're getting special privileges. So why not?
Well, it's not just special privileges. They think they have an extra hand above everybody else, saying, "Hey, well, no, that's not how we do it. So we're going to do it my way." But then turn around and like, I was told to do it this way, but now I'm told not to do it this way. But they just walk up with their nose higher. You can just tell which ones are sleeping with the manager or who are dating the manager.
Yeah.
Just by the way they carry themselves, and you're like, hey, like it doesn't make you any better than me, or
But do they get preferential treatment?
They do.
Yeah.
The owners, you can tell the owners, and they're like, oh, okay, well you're sleeping with so and so. We like so-and-so, so we're gonna special treatment you. And then you're like, okay, if I don't do any side work, why am I getting fired if this person over here isn't doing side work? Because
Jen, you're not sleeping with the right people.
but we're not.
Deke's like, oh, we can fix that easily.
In the airline industry, actually, as it's very, very common for pilots and flight attendants, of course.
God, it's not just
to hook up on the
No. And of course, flight attendants like to talk. So I guess this is anonymous, right? So I have definitely hooked up with a few pilots. Not very many, like 1, 2.
Oh, my first cousin. I should add, my first cousin is an air stewardess. Like my closest cousin is an air stewardess for Air Canada. And the stories that I get are
my gosh, it's like they call it back alley talk, right?
Yeah. So I've heard.
Yeah. Pilots get a reputation. Flight attendants can get reputations. Sometimes,
you hear a lot about doctors, nurses too.
Oh yeah, it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like in the deep
you're
of
in
this.
There, you're on a layover, like somewhere nice, like Barbados or something.
Uh-huh.
You're there.
Have you seen the guys in the kitchen? Like, no.
Like, we're not knocking all the guys in the kitchen.
I'm just saying. I work with, there's like one that's potential.
Most of the pilots are like 40, 50, and a lot of the flight attendants are like 20, 30. They're younger, so like it's a lot of younger girls with older men.
As a manager, it might be, and I've brought it up before when I went through and I was creating a sexual harassment policy, the same thing, workplace thing, for my business. And I didn't want to go and make it awkward, right? It was right before we were doing like a wedding or something, right? The whole team's there, and there's like 20 of us in the room. And I just said, I'm not asking for debates. I'm not asking to share stories. I'm not going to point fingers. I am not going to assume anything. All I want to know is that I'm creating systems in here so that everyone feels safe, and just realize that you can always come and talk to me. Perfect. Right? Yeah. So that I don't assume anything.
Absolutely.
And I'm here if you need to talk to. And I just left it like that. And then I said I'm going to have these copies or whatever. I'll post it on their secret Facebook group page or whatever for the staff.
Yeah.
And if you want to read through it or whatever, and that was it. I'm not going to sit there. Can you imagine? It's like sitting around with your parents having a sex talk. Nobody wants to talk to.
Well, and I don't want to be their counselors.
No, and that's not your job.
Exactly.
And it's not your job. Yeah. But I think it's just a matter of letting them know. So let's conclude with something positive. So if you could talk to your 14-year-old self, what advice would you give her now?
Wow. That's crazy. I wasn't prepared for that. I would advice. I would tell her to keep up the confidence, but not be so combative. I did feel that back then I was like, I did have to sort of put my shoulders back and hold my own. And you don't have to do that. You can be confident without being aggressive. You can be confident without being, combative. And if something happens, you can just say, hey, you know what? That's like, I'm not down with that.
There's strength in being quiet.
Yeah, sometimes, like you just, not everything needs to be a huge blowout. Well, now we have the internet, right? So they just get online and they just talk about it rather than actually talk to the person. But 14, I was very, very naive. I think my 18-year-old self could really have used the chat. Okay. And said, hey, you know what? Like, this is the beginning of what's going to be your chosen profession. Except now that you're an awesome restaurateur, cook, line cook, chef, manager, that you're always going to lead people and have some quiet confidence and just be a little more accepting. Listen a little bit more instead of just straight up, nope. And then, I was a really tough manager. And
can I translate that a little bit?
Sorry.
No, don't apologize for it. I'm just trying to state it in a different way. It's almost like girls at some point, or maybe when they're growing up, feel like they have to be one extreme or the other.
Yeah, that's what it is.
They either have to be, that's kind of what I was thinking. They either have to be, and I felt the same thing.
Yeah.
I either had to be the girly girl twirling my hair, right?
Yeah.
Or I had to be the big, mean, cross her arms, I mean business person. And I felt like I had to be one of those things because there was no in between.
Yeah.
And I think so. I'm just trying to give you a break that maybe your 18-year-old self just.
I didn't know any better, right?
And it also you could have felt that that's what you had to do.
I think that that's it in a nutshell, actually, and I thank you for giving me those words, because that's exactly what it was. And now I'm way more calm, and I've been told by many people that I'm firm but fair, and it would have been cooler to be firm but fair in my 20s and 30s, but now I can just sort of look at the bigger picture. I mean, it's so true, youth is wasted on the young. It's so true.
Yeah.
And they don't like hearing that.
I know.
But they won't know until they're my age.
That's right.
But that's a really
But I think that's our responsibility, and I found that I was playing that role a lot when I was when I had my 20-year-old girls working with me, where I could show them that you could be. I felt like I had to show them without preaching to them. So I hope that this long episode gave you a little insight into what's happening behind the scenes these days. And I really hope that you can also look at that flight attendant or restaurant server a little differently now, and maybe realize how courageous that woman is actually being. So again, if you have a story that you'd like to share with our listeners, feel free to message us directly through the Facebook page, Flying for Flavor, or you can always email us at flavor@stephaniepichet.ca. A good saying that my husband Norm taught me that I think is fitting to close out this show is that information is power, but understanding and using that information is empowerment. And we here at Flying for Flavor are wishing empowerment for all of you. So until next week, subscribe and rate us on all the podcast players and apps, and you can always visit us at flyingforflavor.ca. Until next week, cheers.